Okay, real life can work.
All praises due unto Yahweh,
Yahweh,
Ba'ashem,
Ba'ashem,
Yahweh Shai,
Yahushai,
Ba'ashem
Ba'ashem,
Makakwada,
Yakakwadash.
double honors apostles of Great
Baba,
Millstone,
Bashan.
double honors apostles of Great Millstone, of whom we learn this truth. Peace and blessings to the elect.
Khan.
My name's Kanawak. You have the other brothers. You could introduce yourself.
His brother Howard.
And we're going to be going into the history of the British and the Scottish of Scotland during the medieval times. And I was going to get out this. I have this book, Nature Knows No Color Line, written by Joel A. Rogers or J. A. Rogers,
Mhm.
and very good book. It goes into our history that was been hidden, right? And
Are we able to post the book so people can see how the book looks?
if somebody has a PDF of the Nation of the Color Line,
No, just a picture, like just how it looks.
oh yeah, you could put you could go on Google. You could put Nature Known the Color Line by J. A. Rogers. And some good, you could buy it you could download it as a PDF, or you could buy it. They have it used probably for like $15-20. Very good book. It says page 69 of this book, National Color Line. 7 years after the capture of Gibraltar, the Moors invaded France and conquered and overran most of its southern part. They probably went as far as Geneva, Switzerland, then part of France, right? So the Moors, they were very vast. So this is another paragraph. In Africa, the Moors continued to leading power, and to not know little extent in India also. The it says they dominated the Mediterranean and the North Atlantic and plundered the coast of the Western Europe of Scotland. David McRitchie emanated British archaeological says so late as the 20th century, three of these province went. Sorry, three of these provinces were wholly black, and the supreme ruler of them became a time that the paramount king of transmarine Scotland. Right, so Jake was in Scotland, ruling throughout Scotland, Britain, all throughout Europe, Russia. We see only the black
And
people. Go ahead.
you mentioned McRitchie, right?
Yes.
And also in the book that I have, the Negro rulers of Scotland and the British Isles,
Yes.
that's who they mention as well. So obviously they're correlating these different researchers, because this guy is Dr. John L. Johnson. So these guys, they know what they're talking about.
That's right. It says we see one of the black people, the Moors of the Romans, in the person of King Alban, the 10th century. History known him as Kenneth, sometime as Dub, as Niger. So his name is Kenneth the Niger, right?
Mhm.
He was a king in Scotland.
Yeah.
We know as a historical fact that Niger Dub have lived and reigned over certain black division of our island, right? So that's, Britain, Scotland, Ireland, and probably
Hey, can I
go
say
ahead.
something real quick?
Yeah.
And then when you go into the word dub, it's the same as the word duff or duffy. They even have it in I think it's in the TV show The Simpsons. I can't remember if it's the beer or something, but they'll have that word duff or something
Duff.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, Duff.
And it's a
Yeah, Duff
Gaelic
beer.
name, which means black or nigger or niger.
Wow. So we know as a historical fact that the Niger El Dub has lived and reigned over certain black division of our island, and probably white division also, that a race known as the son of black succeeded him in history. Welsh Welsh tradition, he says, tell also of these black people, and the legend and history of the Scottish Highlands are both witness to the existence of a purely black people there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, our people were basically after the fall of the Jacobites. A lot of those Jake, they were exiled and they were brought to the New World, right, as slaves, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
it says with the with the with the 10 most powerful navy of the Moors preyed upon shipping in the Atlantic, captured passengers and sailors, and selling them into slavery into Africa and Islamic coast. Right? What else? So page 76. Any brothers have any scriptures, you could bring it out. So this is off of page 76, and it shows the British family, the Moores of Yorkshire, including Thomas More, Chancellor of Henry VIII. So this is supposed to be, they say Chancellor, but this is, I feel like this is Henry VIII. But they're saying that this is guy supposed to be a
Yeah.
Chancellor, but this is really like the coat of arms, and they scanned it, right. So when you go to the museum, it actually has the proper colors, but he scanned this, but it says it says Mick Ritchie says both these these views are right only in a very small way, because they do not explain why so many of those families with Negroes are named Moore, Blackamoor, and like McRitchie is correct when he says that families with the name Morris, Morrison, or
Mm-hmm.
other derivative of Moore had more of their ancestry, right? So, if you see a white person that has that name, maybe their background could be of the Moors, right? We don't know, but that was a common name, right? Because we had a family crest throughout, throughout Europe, and like throughout the world, right?
And the only time that an actual Caucasian would take that name on is if they were trying to take your property. So
Ooh,
Caucasians would put um, our names upon themselves, but that was just to transfer wealth.
that's
Because
right.
when you go into the names of like the
Mm-hmm.
the the um, the Slavs or the serfs, you could tell their names are different. They'll have names like Schickelgruber and these different names that Jake doesn't have those names.
Yeah.
And those names came later on. The names
Yes.
like Moore, Morris, Kenneth the Black, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was before Esau even got back into rule. So
Yes.
when you hear them with the names like Johnson, you hear that's either a Jake that looks like an Edomite, or that's an Edomite that probably took on the names with
Hijacker.
which got the property. He got land. He got all types of stuff, but he just took on the name. They did that to
Mhm.
Gad as well. You have a lot of Edomites. They have the name. Oh, yeah, I'm chief. This, that. No, you're not. You're an Edomite,
That's
but
true.
they get benefits for
Con.
being those people.
That's right.
The $5 Indian.
The five
The
dollar
five,
Indian.
yeah, Khan.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah, that's good. It says, as proof, he gives instance of Negroes in much later time who were brought to England chiefly from Africa, being baptized into the church and given surnames Morris, right? So that's why some of our people are giving them surnames, right? You know, these Edomites
Mhm.
too, right?
Yep.
Because they were like intermingled like with our family, right? Because they were serfs. It says
Con. Hey, real quick, can I back you
what
up? Because
what
Howard, you mentioned about Duff. I was just looking up that guy Kenneth, because you mentioned Kenneth Kanawak, right?
yes.
Yeah,
Kenneth the
because
Tiger.
Kenneth the Niger, that's where a lot of the royals can trace their lineage back to,
Yeah,
Wow.
right?
he's a main figure in the
He's the main
genealogy.
figure, exactly. Yeah.
He's yeah. So this
The
is Kenneth the
hijackers.
third. Yeah, Kenneth the third, 1005, no, 966 AD to 1005, right? So this is reign and descendants. It's this is from Wikipedia, by the way. It
Yeah.
says, I'll just go to the point. John Bannerman theorized that Mac Dub, the Gaelic patronymic of Kenneth III, evolved to the surnames Duff and Macduff, and that Kenneth III could be a direct ancestor to Clan Macduff. So showing you that dub, which is denoting it's another way of saying swarthy. You know, it's
Exactly.
pretty
That's
much just
another good word.
it's just a Scottish way of saying swarthy,
Yes.
dove or dub, and then it turned into duff, like the brother said. So that was it.
Yep.
And then to back you up, Jeremiah, it says that Kenneth the Third was the son of Kenneth the Niger, who
Mhm.
the second, whose father was called the Black Prince of Wales.
Mhm.
Right. So when you go deeper and deeper into this, all these men were men of color, right? And then it says Richard the Second's cousin, Henry the Fourth, also grandson of Edward the Third, succeeded him, which lets you know now when you're going into the line of Edward, you're going into the line of dark skinned men as well.
Now, see, I have Edward's.
Mhm.
Like my sister, her name is Edward, right?
Khan,
And that's a big name
yes,
in the Caribbean and in the UK, the Edward.
very
So
big.
they're the same. They're the same people. Like like they weren't in slavery. They were actually empowered during the Dark Ages. You know.
And
They're
where
big family.
I just read from is the book called The Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isles.
Yes. So I'm
Yeah, they
still
say
gonna.
that Edward.
But
They say that Edward means wealthy guardian, derived from Eid meaning wealth and word meaning guardian or protector.
Khan.
yeah. So this is still a national Caroline. I'm almost done. And a proof as proof, he gave instance of Negroes in much later times who were brought to England chiefly as from Africa, being baptized into the church and given surname More. He cites the case of L. More, maid of honor to Queen Margaret of Scotland. In 1504, he says two Blackamoor girls arrived and were educated at the court, and when they waited on the queen, right? So our people, they had churches, they had like universities,
Oh yeah.
and they're and those universities are still standing throughout Europe. Cambridge, Oxford. There's so many of them.
Hmm.
You know, and
Yeah.
it says in 1504, he says two Blackamoor girls arrived, and when and were educated at the court, where they waited on the queen. They were baptized, Ellen and Margaret. In June 1507, a tournament was held in honor to the Queen Black Lady Ellen More, who
Hmm.
was conducted with great splendor. And her husband, King James, had the Negro minstrels, the chief of which was Peter the Morin or Moor. It says, that King James, I believe, that King James, he was the sixth of
Yeah,
Scotland.
yeah, yeah, in the first of England.
Yeah, you know, and said McRitchie concluded, which was Peter the Moor. It says the Ellen Moore. Um, McRitchie concluded the Ellen Moore often an unmistakable example of the surname Moore have been given because of the person it distinguished was Moray or
Mhm.
Moray or Maury. Um,
Yeah, many variations of that word.
yeah, so 79 said the Negro minstrel at the Scottish court served as the climax to a evening of enjoyment. Um, McRitchie added that the legend and history of the Scottish Highland are both witness to existence of pure black people there. Right,
Mhm.
so Jake was in power, man. Um, it says also Robert Knox in 1850 mentioned a small uh, colony of mulatto living at
and
Minnick.
we have to understand that this is going into our 1,000 year rule, right? So if brothers want to know how it links up, we just have to go into Revelations, right, where Esau was put down for 1,000 years,
Yep.
and also Esau fulfilling the prophecy of him also being in the caves, right? This is where he became the lowest that he's ever been as a man, where he walked on all fours, he lost his language,
Yep.
he became a base man,
Yep.
right? This is when Jake also became wicked as well. This is when the modern day Christianity was created. It was created by Jake going off into all types of paganism that they got not only from Rome, but every kingdom that came before Rome as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. This is a good book to have. Uh, as well as
And
these
it's
other
not.
books that the brothers.
It's. I just want to say. No, I just want to say it's not. It's not so black and white like when the 1,000 years started. Like even before
Yeah,
that, Jake was coming up and Esau was transitioning, and then at the
yeah,
end of that as well, Esau was coming up. It's not so like 1,000 years. Like there's times where Esau was in the caves, and then there's times where Esau was used in the Islamic armies and in Byzantine armies, and then we put them on the level, and they
Khan,
became scribes, accountants, bankers, whatever, you know,
Khan.
office, and then they took over. You know,
I have a precept, Revelation 21, and I saw an angel come down from heaven having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, the old serpent, which is the devil, and Satan bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him that he should deceive the nation no more till 1,000 years shall be fulfilled. And after that he must be loose a little season. So this is their little season that they're in. And their little season is to basically to rule the earth and to get everybody tagged with the whole RFID technology. Like that's their whole agenda, right?
and a
So
part and a part of that little season as well, which was genius. It was genius on their part. Was Job 9 and 24. If a brother can get Job 9 and 24, because
Yeah.
all they had to do was put their image upon our images and then tell the story as if it's them, which,
Mhm.
to be honest, that's genius. So because people were already, when you use the church system, people were already worshiping deities and all of these things. People weren't really reading the scriptures, because when you go into our rulership, the majority of Jakes, I'm sorry to say, but you were dumb. You weren't educated. Only educated people read the scriptures, right? That's why the scriptures had to be translated later for the
Con.
common man. And the majority of Jakes were just common men, and they were
That's
taught
right.
the Bible. And when you were taught the Bible, you were taught paganism without even knowing it.
That's right. Or some of them, they were into the whole Islam, so they were into
Yeah,
that
yeah,
whole way of life,
yeah.
following Muhammad.
Which is a really good point, Kanawak, because when you're going into Islam, you're going into the Phoenicians as well. Because remember, there was a split, right? Jake were a part of that Phoenician empire. Later became the Vikings. Later became the
Mhm.
Celts.
Yeah.
But the Celts, and then later became the Moors. But Jake was intermingled with these men as well. So
Yeah.
you're 100% right, huh?
Yeah. Job
And I just wanted
9:24.
to,
Go ahead.
real quick. I just wanted to add about the point you mentioned on the Bible. The Bible was in Latin for the longest time, which Latin
Yeah,
was considered a noble language, a language of nobility, and you needed a tutor, which cost money to teach you. So the
yeah.
commoners, they didn't have that. That's why King James was hated by the clergy, which most likely at that time was already Esau coming up. But
That
they hated
money.
him because he wanted to translate the Bible into the common tongue so the common man could read it, right? And that's why he got those scholars. He paid that. That was a big job, a
Yeah,
project, right? So he
yeah,
paid those scholars that were experts in Latin, Greek, and Hebrew,
yeah.
to translate to the best of their ability into the English, right?
Job 9:24. The earth is given to the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where is he? And that's what he did with his whole Renaissance Christianity, his Renaissance art,
Mm-hmm.
destroying our images
Khan,
and painting themselves as God, right? And deceive the whole world.
let me back you up real quick. This is back in the Negro rulers of Scotland and the British Isles. This is page 7. It says, Edward of Woodstock, the first son of Edward III, was called the Black Prince because of his black skin, not because of his black armor. And that's something that Esau
Mhm.
uses as well. He'll
Yep.
tell you, oh, they're called the black because of their armor or something silly like that.
Or their black
Um,
hair or
yeah,
some shit.
yeah, Khan. It says the black armor he wore. The French called him Lenore or Lanoir. You'll see that a lot in French, which means Niger, right? Or dark skin, black. When he was a child, his grandmother, Joanne I of Navarre, was said to have favored an Arab, which kind of what goes into that all the time, because our people were into that, were mixed and mingled into that Arab lifestyle as well.
Yes.
Mhm.
It says his mother Philippa of Hainault, the wife of Edward III, possessed a wide mouth, full lips, flat nose, dark skin. Old paintings of Philippa's third son John of Gaunt and husband Edward III exhibits dark skin, strong Negro facial features.
Yeah.
And this,
So they had Negro type features, right?
yeah,
They were. They were they're Israelites, And like this was in Scotland.
Slovakia, no,
Well, they're in Europe then.
yeah, they were in Europe. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
because this was Edward III.
Edward, yes, Edward III, yeah.
Yeah,
Big family, yeah. And our people don't even know this history, man. Right?
no,
Some like certain like in certain people might have that word. Like some of our people might have that last name Edward, and they don't even know that you guys were in power, like you guys were kings, during the dark ages,
because our people are trying to run away from that history because they were taught that their names is the oppressor's names,
Yes.
right? So
Mhm.
yeah. Going back into the same book, this is page 9. It says George the first son, George the second, succeeded him and was succeeded by his grandson George the third, who married a black queen named Sophia Charlotte, which
Ooh.
brothers know, of course, who was a descendant of a Negro royal family of Portugal and Spain, where were originally called Iberia.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
she was known as a Malala. She was very light skinned.
Yes,
She would look like a Beyonce. She had that type of like features, right?
she might have been. She
She
might
might
have
have been
been.
Beyonce, yeah. And that was our people. Her husband was King James the Third, which he was light skinned too, and he was a Jake.
Con.
Because in that TV series they have of Queen Charlotte, they have what they show her as a black woman, light skin, but they showed that King James the Third as a white man, which was false. Jake was still in power in the whole 1800s, right?
That picture that you showed actually looks like Beyonce. But
Yeah,
let me get a scripture real quick.
yeah.
This is Songs of Solomon 1 and 5. It says, I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. And he was light skinned as well. Because his mother, um, Solomon's mother was
Ruth.
what was she? Ammon? Was she Ammon?
Ammonite.
Think she was an Ammonite? Yeah. So he had to be light skinned too.
No, that's King Solomon. No, Slacker. Bathsheba.
What?
What am I talking about? I think about his son,
Oh yeah, I'm
Jeroboam.
sorry. I'm thinking about his son. My bad. My bad.
Yeah, Bathsheba. And King David was ready, right? So
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, he comes from a dark skinned line.
Yeah, just like how Ruth, right? Ruth, she's a Moabite, but she's tied in with the line. She's tied in with the lineage of David. Yeah.
that was it, Howard?
Yeah, that was it.
I had something I wanted to read. This is from a book, The Machinery and Projection of Monarchy, page 273. And it says, they were portrayed as the new Israelites and England as the new Jerusalem. Convictions they have never entirely abandoned. Henry V's reign confirmed that all this was so. In popular propaganda, the great Harry appeared as the true elect of God, the celestial warrior. His baby son and successor, Henry VI, was likened to the Christ child. Again, Jay going into wickedness, but they always had that attitude of they're the Most High's people. That's why they have the
Yes.
lion on the flag of England, right? And all
That's
the
right.
different crests of the different families, they always use that lion. It says, as the savior of his and God's kingdom, his people were that special tribe, the English, whose king was over all other Christian gods. And that's Jake also going into, we're better than other Jakes, like I said, going off. But you have to understand the English, they primarily descend from the Saxons, that's where the word England comes from, right? Angelic, right? And
That's right.
Anglo Saxon, angelic son of Isaac. But you had, like you mentioned, the Celts. They were already living in England, which a lot of them were Jakes. They sometimes they were called Celtic Britannic or Britannic Celts or Celtic Iberians. And then they
Celts
went
of
into different
Gaul.
tribes.
Yep.
Celts of Gaul, um,
Celts of
the
Germany.
the Jutes, yeah, the Jutes, the Welsh, these different
Yes.
tribes, the Picts. They kind of divided themselves, but a lot of those were Celtic Iberians.
That's right. Yeah, Khan. Was that it?
And I had a picture.
Can I back
Real
you up
quick,
real
I just
quick?
had a picture. Hold on. This is a Saxon king here, Athelstan, right?
Wow.
So you could type it in, King
Is it
Athelstan.
is
So
it
that was a
Alfred?
Saxon king.
I think his name's Alfred or something. I forgot the
No, no,
brother.
it's Athelstan. Yeah, his name is Athelstan.
Yeah, starts with A. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, king of the Anglo-Saxons from 924 to 927.
Wow.
Right, and they'll have like this guy. They'll show you this guy.
Yeah.
You know,
He
but
saw the
when you go
devil.
into different icons, they'll have this image here, and you can see they tried to wipe away the images.
Yeah.
And then this is Henry
See
III
that?
on his bed.
They whitewash it. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
They whitewash it. Yeah.
See Jake's in the back.
Everybody,
You know, that's going into this
devils,
iconoclasm. This
man.
is Henry VII.
And they and
You know?
they have all of our record. They know exactly who we are and everything, man. And they just whitewash everything
That
and
was
tell
it.
lies. That's it.
That was it.
Yeah, that was it.
I'm just gonna back you up real quick because you mentioned the lion, but which brothers can just Google this as well. When you look up the lion and the unicorn, which the brothers going into what is known as our heraldry or our coat of arms, which is very, very important because the brother Kanawak was talking about our last names. A lot of you can actually trace your last names back to Europe. Not all of us, because some of you did go into captivity from North Africa or Western Africa, the western coast of Africa. But some of us, especially the southern tribe, we were ruling in Europe. And it says the lion and the unicorn are symbols of the United Kingdom. They are properly speaking heraldic supporters appearing in the full royal coat of arms of the United Kingdom. The lion stands for England and the unicorn stands for Scotland. So just like the elders were mentioning, this is going into Jake's rule. This is Jake's rulership over both those kingdoms, man. It's also a symbol of them defeating the pagans, right? Because like the elder Jeremiah was mentioning, when you go into the Celts, or you might go into the Vikings, or you might go into the Gauls, or you might go into the Goths, the Visigoths. These were Israelites that were pagans.
Mm-hmm.
They were literally drinking blood, sacrificing children, doing all manners of wickedness. So we started to purge those things out going into when we went more into King James time, right? Starting before King James, but when we became more royal, so to speak. And it says the lion stands for England and the unicorn stands for Scotland. The combination, therefore, dates back to 1603, ascension of James I of England, who was already James VI of Scotland. By extension, they have also been used in the arms of Hanover, right? So when you go into Hanover, that's Jake as well. Between, that was the point. Yeah, that was the point.
Wow.
Okay. I had some stuff to bring out, so whenever you brothers want to interject, do so. So there's a lot of stuff here.
Go ahead.
This is from realhistorywww.com. So it says, let me see. So you see like Hibernia, which that's another way of saying Iberia, which is Hebrew. That's what Ireland was known as well at a time period.
That's right.
So it says, quote, who were the original inhabitants of Britain, whether they were indigenous or foreign, is as usual among barbarians little known. Their physical characteristics are various, and from these conclusions may be drawn. The red hair and large limbs of the inhabitants of Caledonia point clearly to a German origin. Now, a lot of those, even those German Vandals and Goths, some of them were Edomites that were also among Jake. They were employed.
That's right.
Okay. The dark complexion of the Silures, which the Silures When you look up that word Salur, those are Celts, and that's where allegedly they say King Arthur was derived from. Because when I watched that movie the other day, the one from mid 2000s. It's a good movie.
Which one?
King Arthur.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
You know?
watch all of them.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
favorite one because they actually kind of go into history and they go into Sarmatians, and those were Celts that were employed by the Romans, to fight for them pretty much.
Yeah.
Khan.
And then at that same time, Saxons were already invading England, so they had to fight them. But like Jake was already scattered everywhere. And when you
Khan.
look up the Silurians, they'll describe them as swarthy people, right? So it says they're usually curly hair, and the fact that Spain is the opposite shore to them are an evidence that Iberians of a former date crossed over and occupied these parts. Those who are nearest to the Gauls are also like them, either from permanent influence of original descent or because in countries which run out so far to meet each other, climate has produced similar physical qualities. Because this guy goes off as well with genetics, and he tries to establish the fact that your environment contributes to your
skin
how
tone.
you look like, yeah,
Yes.
right, which is false. So here's the true Gauls. This is the last king of the Gauls, I believe.
And that's his coin, right?
Yeah, yeah, the last king of the unified Celts and Gauls of France, Normandy. Right.
I have a precept.
Yeah, bring it up.
I know
Revelation.
Jakes that look like that.
Yeah, man. Some braids or dreads or whatever.
Yeah, Khan.
Revelation 12:16. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. So where the lies is being exposed, with the whole archaeological evidence, the coins, the iconoclasm, all their lies is being exposed now.
That's right.
The dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which kept the commandments of Yahweh and have the testimony of Yahweh Shai Mashiach.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a war that we're fighting because Esau knows this history, but he's trying to hide it. He's spending trillions of dollars every year, to try to hide this truth, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So reading on, it says the Normans were the people who gave their name to Normandy, which they made a movie with Martin Lawrence back in the day, the Black Men.
I like that one, man.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies because when you're watching it, it's a joke to people, but we know the real joke. The elites are joking on you people.
Yeah.
They're playing a practical joke on you. But he was from Normandy in LA, and then when he landed in France, he was Normandy.
Yeah.
And they kept calling him more.
Yes, they kept calling him more. Yeah.
More, that's the more from Normandy.
Yeah, Khan.
It says a region in northern France. They were descended from Viking conquerors of the territory and the native population. Their identity emerged initially in the first half of the 10th century and gradually evolved over succeeding centuries. The name Normans derives from Northmen, after the Vikings who conquered Normandy. Right?
Hey, and that's the reason why that's important history as well, is because then those men also became pirates later. And if you want to, you don't have to, but if you go into the history of the pirates, a lot of those pirates were Israelite men. They were on the seas.
Yeah.
Right? They came up with those different laws, the laws of the seas and this and that.
Yeah. Jake has been raiding from time, man.
From time.
Right. So this is the Iberians. Okay,
Iberian, right, which is throughout Spain, Portugal, throughout that region.
Yeah, this is Spain. Yep. Let me see. So it says, but a general survey inclines me to believe that the Gauls established themselves in an island so near to them, their religious belief may be traced in the strongly marked British superstition. The language differs but little. There is the same boldness in challenging danger, and when it is near, the same timidity in shrinking from it. The Britons, however, exhibit more spirit, as being a people whom a long peace has not yet enervated. Indeed, we have understood that even the Gauls were once renowned in war, but after a while, sloth following on ease crept over them, and they lost their courage along with their freedom.
That's Jake. That's Jake, man. When they start to do good,
Con.
they get slothful. They live in fat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeshua wax fat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right. It says, this too has happened to the long conquered tribes of Britain. The rest are still what the Gauls
Can I
once
say
were.
something as well? Because when you go into the diet of a lot of those people, their diet was terrible. They call it the king's meat, and the stuff that
Kings,
they
yep.
ate were
Yep.
terrible, terrible. They didn't eat well, especially the rich, especially the royals, man. They
Con.
ate the same garbage every single day, drank a lot of wine,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
A lot of
Fuck a
high in
lot of women.
sodium.
True.
They could eat a lot of sweets because they were rich. The poor never had a lot of sweets. It was mainly the rich.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Yep. So this is a Roman Celtic god on the left. So these are things that they found in ancient Britannia. So this is a study of the settlement of England.
And Britannia means man of the covenant, right?
Mhm.
Like Barayath means man of the covenant.
Khan. That's right. Barayath. Yep. And the tribal origin of the English people, quote, our darker forefathers. And this is from 1906.
It
And
looks
by the
like he
way,
has braids.
yeah, when you look up Saxon coins, like I was just looking up Saxon coins, they all have braids and shit, you know? Like
Yeah,
just
that
look up
looks like braids, brother.
you know?
And look at the face, man. That's a
Yeah.
Jake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, this one got cornrows.
Yeah, he has cornrows. Con.
So anytime you look up Saxon, it's a lot of Jakes, man.
Yeah.
You'll just see Jakes, right? So it says, as regards the ancient brown race or races of North Europe, there can be no doubt of their existence in the southeast of Norway and in the east of Friesland. There can be no doubt about the important influence which the old Wendish race has had in the northeastern parts of Germany in transmitting to their descendants a more brunette complexion than prevails among the people of Hanover, Holstein, and Westphalia, of more pure Teutonic descent. Wends, or West Slavs, living near the Germanic settlement base or areas, it is believed that the Germanic peoples originally applied the ethnonym to the ancient Veneti. And these are all names that Jake pretty much had. Teutonic, you know, you had the order of the Teutonic Knights, right? In Central Europe,
That's right.
right? And after the migration period, they transferred it to their new easternly neighbors, the Slavs. Following the 8th century, the Frankish kings and their successors organized nearly all Wendish land into marches. This process later turned into the series of crusades. By the 12th century, all Wendish lands has become part of the Holy Roman Empire. In the course of the Ostindlung, which reached its peak in the 12th to 14th century, this land was settled by Germans and reorganized. Due to the process of assimilation following German settlement, many Slavs west of the Oder adopted the German culture and language.
Wow. Wow.
So Jake was over there in Germany, man, living good.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Hey, Germany is beautiful, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those are beautiful places, bro. Like when I look up, because I look up castles in Europe, man, and those places are gorgeous, man.
That's
gorgeous.
right. They're still standing. Yeah.
Those are like, what do they call rural areas, man? A lot of grassland. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, a lot
bro.
of forestry. Yep.
Forestry.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is just going into coat of arms, brothers. Whatever you got, bring it out.
Yeah, this is real quick. This is First Maccabees, chapter 3, verse 48, and laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint their likeness of their images.
So they're gonna pay, man. You know, for all the deception what they've been pushing around the world. You know, once the that's why I said Revelation says it said that they're gonna be bound with chains, right? Revelation says that he that leaveth to captivity will go into captivity, man.
That's right.
You know, they're gonna have to pay for all their lies and all the deception what they were pushing. Yeah, that's it. for me.
This is First Maccabees 2:10, and it reads, "What nation hath not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils?"
Yeah, so yeah, they have all of our artifacts, our history,
That's right.
knowledge, our heritage. They took everything from us, man.
And a lot of these things are priceless. Like the things that they took are priceless. Even when you go into the a lot of the stuff that the royals have. And when I say the royals, I'm talking about the ones that are in England today. When you'll see some big diamonds and jewels, crowns,
scepters.
Some of those things are priceless, man.
Yep.
Their horse and carriage, they have all the gold. They have the horse and carriage.
Yeah.
With pure gold.
Pure gold.
Yeah.
What is that? A scepter?
Yeah, scepter.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Pure gold.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, crown jewel. Yeah, the different crowns.
Yes.
And the purple was costly too. Even that material was costly.
Yeah, that's the Tyrian. It's called the Tyrian purple, which goes all the way back to the Phoenicians.
That's right.
The Phoenicians were big with that purple.
Wow.
That's where you get the phoenix, right? What's it called? That's why what is it? The city known as Phoenix, that's where they get it from. It goes back to the Phoenicians.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
This is Matthew chapter 5, verse 13. It says, "Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost his flavor, wherewith shall it be salted?"
Mm-hmm. No, look at our people right now. Our people are in the ghettos. Their parents are not even on straight. They're
Hey, the girl stopped on the highway just to twerk. She stopped traffic just to twerk.
And these are some of the royal people that are empowered during those times. But now look at us now.
Yeah,
we're in a very low state, man. And that's good, man. Because 2/3 of you guys have to be destroyed.
The
144,000 has to be risen, right?
Yeah, because a lot of these nobles and kings and dukes, they were a bunch of fucking ditties and
yes.
And you know what I mean? Like all these Floyd Mayweather's running around with scepters and shit and doing a bunch of wickedness, man.
Yeah.
Committing adultery.
Yeah.
So this is a picture of Black Knights. You can see, they kind of lighten it up, but
and they have the woolly hair. But you see what they did, man. These guys are wicked.
Yeah, this is
they try to wash it.
Edward III. You guys are going into the Edwards.
Yeah.
Oh, just a bunch of smudge that got onto the icon. Don't worry.
Yeah. The dust. Yeah, the dust. Oh, that's a black man right there. Holy.
It's a church smoke.
No, yeah, right there. Like that's a Jake, man.
Yeah, and part of the deception was, and this is Saint Maurice. He was a knight of the Round Table.
Wow.
The Arthurian Round Table. Bunch of knights here. Medieval knights. So that's why Jake, in the spirit, they like shows like Vikings and Game of Thrones, and they're like, I don't know why I like the medieval stuff, but because it's in their spirit. A lot of you guys were those knights on armor, on the horseback with armor, and you guys
I always liked the medieval time during school when I was in like grade 3, grade 4. And then I went to the Knights of I went to the medieval thing over there in Toronto or whatever. I was fascinated with that stuff, The daggers, the big dagger.
That's a nigga right there. Hey, and the joke is during that time, men had those names where they would be known as the righteous or the good. That's not talking about Esau, because Esau would exemplify that same characteristics today. He doesn't. He exemplifies the devil.
Yep.
The wicked.
That's right. That's right.
This is Amos chapter 9, verse 11, and it reads, "In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen,
That's right.
and close up the breaches thereof, and I will raise up his ruins, and I will build it as in the days of old."
So the 140,000 is being built up. So Esau has to be on his toes, man. Esau's on his toes right now.
Well, that's why he's getting these other Israelite camps to push Christ, or getting them to push that the MOTB is not really the MOTB, because really and truly that's what they don't want. Just like in the time of our Lord and our Savior Yahushua, they were trying to delete all the babies, right? Because they don't want these prophecies to come to pass.
Yeah.
So you guys are going into David McRitchie. There's some quotes. And by the way, David McRitchie, he wanted to disprove the fact that so-called dark-skinned people ruled. And then in his research, he proved the opposite pretty much, because he found, the truth.
Yes.
In his book called Ancient and Modern Britons.
Yep.
Wow.
Which had 2 volumes or 3?
I think you're right, Elder.
He went in. Yeah, he went in. So it says, McRitchie believed, I'm reading from this part here, McRitchie believed that blacks were the original inhabitants of Northern Europe, especially in Scandinavia, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland, going into the Middle Ages.
Now, and real quick,
yep.
And you Negroes, you not the Latinos, but you Negroes, you want 40 acres and a mule. 40 acres and a mule, you're owed way more.
Fine.
That's right.
And through the understanding of this truth, we know that the real ancient inhabitants was Japhet, who was dark-skinned. So,
true.
We know that as well. It says he lists numerous Vikings whom he believes to be black. Quote, so that the Picts proper and the Black Danes, being both Moors and both being black strangers.
You see, I have the same thing in the same book. It goes into the Danes and stuff. And the Vikings, the same thing. Yeah.
Which the Danes is going into the Dorians. Right?
Yes.
When you go into the Dorians, they took over from the Ionians. And the elders talking about Japhet. Japhet were really the Ionians. Right. But we took over their territories, which you had the Ionians, you had the Dorians, who's where you get Hercules, which we know is Samson, right? But then later became the Spartans.
Yeah. Yes.
What book is that, Kanawak?
This is the early African present early Europe. It says page. I'm gonna just add on to this.
I'm gonna see the map because
Khan.
You said there's different names. There's Ionians. So it says the Black Danes or the Dub Gauls or black strangers in the sight of the white races of Britain, accepting the conclusion then as in the main correct, we have before us undeniable evidence. We know that the first inhabitants of Britain and more, especially those of the northern parts, were craniologically of a type approaching to the Negro or the Australian race, which that's the spirit because the Australians is Japhet.
Yeah.
It says the black herds of Scots and Picts were all alike to British Gildas.
Wow.
Yeah, I have the same thing. It's basically by that David McRitchie, and it goes into the Danes and the Vikings. Basically, that they're the same people. Yeah.
Yep. It says down here that the wild tribes of Ireland were black men is hinted by the fact that a wild Irishman is in Gaelic a black Irishman.
The Black Irish.
yeah. We can remember a couple of days ago was the Saint Patrick's Day.
Yeah, Khan. That's a good
And then
point.
like a lot of these Edomites are going wearing all green and shit. No, like some of them might be Jakes, but a lot of them are Edomites, man.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, and that green is a representative of just pigmentation as well, right? Because
Okay.
when we used to say green, it just means that you're fertile, right? Green and blue,
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. Vitality.
vitality. That's it.
It says, and that some of the natives of Scotland as well as of England were of this race also is evident when one remembers that, according to Skene, the powerful tribe of the Demnoni, which was the chief of the Métis or marsh dwellers, who were a part of the Picti or Caledoni, were probably relations. Were probably relations of their namesakes of southwestern Britain, which indeed is almost a certainty if nomenclature goes for anything. So pretty much this guy, he's going into that. And in Kanawak, you said he had the book as well, right?
Yeah, basically it's the same thing going into the Danes. It says African presence in early Europe by Ivan Cernima. It says it says even even before the period in which Kenneth Niger of the Three Black Division lived, more than a century earlier, in fact, Britain was subject to a violent and repeated assault by the aggressive and expansion expanding Danes, who David McRitchie pointed out were not a racial homo- homogeneous, or sorry, not a racial homogeneous group. It said the Danari, also styled by Black Danes or Black Danes, in is is none of these terms in their. If there's any hint that the color of the hair it was indicated, the Danes then were were not a pure color, they were dub or black. um, it says on one get one gets the impression that the that visitation in Britain were anything but pleasant. They they were frequently um, occurred suddenly and destructive, and we were only halted by the Norman invasion of Britain in 1090, in 19 sorry in 987 AD. For example, the Dane landed in the South Wales. It says destroying and pillaging to extent that local ruler of Meridian.
And they were quote unquote pagans,
Yeah,
right?
and
They
they were
were
plunders.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were plunderers. Yeah.
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 And was compelled to pay them pennies for for every man with his hand, which was called the tribute of the black armies. Alright, so they're paying tribute. So the Denmark and Danes were going into Britain, and they were paying tribute. You know, that's what they show you that in that movie, or that TV series, The Vikings.
Yep.
There were certain islands in Britain where the Dane lingered for an extended period, and thus we have, for example, the name Leod, son of Black, prince of man, an island which the Danes dominated. The father Lud seems to have been Olifin Skevin, or Olivin the Sword, was the king was a king of man in the 13th century. That's
Which
pretty
which
much it.
the elder brought up, right? The
Yeah,
elder brought up the word swarthy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. But this is a very good book too.
Hey, let me get this real quick
Yeah.
because you went forward. I'm gonna go backward to the 5th century BC.
Go
It says the Dorians and the Ionians were the two most politically important Greek ethnies or ethnic group whose ultimate clash resulted in the Peloponnesian War. Right, the Peloponnesian War, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Brothers can look that up. It says the degree to which the 5th century Hellenes self-identified as Ionians, which the elder brought up, which is Japhet. So you have to know when you go back into antiquity, right, who we were and who Japhet was, and when Esau ultimately came in. It says self-identified as Ionians or Dorians has itself been disputed. At one extreme, one will conclude that there was no true ethnic component in the 5th century Greek culture, in spite of anti-Dorian elements in Athenian propaganda. At the other extreme, John Atlee reinterprets the source to conclude that ethnicity did motivate 5th century actions. Of course it did, because these were two different people. Moderns viewing these ethnic identifications through the 5th and 4th century BC literary tradition have been profoundly influenced by their own social politics. Also, according to Tigristed, 9th century European admirers or virtues, they considered Dorian identified themselves as leconophile, or found responsive parallels in the culture of their day, as well as their biases contribute to their traditional modern interpretations of Dorians, because Dorians and Ionians were different. They had different cultural differences. That's how you know, right? One was a pork eater. One didn't eat pork. They were like, when Jake first goes into a land, they try to keep the laws that they know, and then they go off. They mix what the people of the land were doing with their traditions.
Yeah.
That's
They
what
get
Jake
fat.
does.
They get fat. They get slothful.
Yep, Khan. That was the point.
I looked up that thing you're saying, the Peloponnesian War. So they pretty much said it was an ancient Greek war fought between Athens and Sparta and their respective allies for the hegemony of the Greek world.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Because we pushed Japhet out.
Yeah. And then you can say that was the time, because that was around 431 to 404 BC. That was around the time Esau was coming up too.
That's right.
Because Philip was a Macedonian.
Alexander's
so the
father.
Mennonites were all up in that. That's right. Just to land back off what I was saying before about the Silurians or Silurs, and again, this is from Wikipedia. The Silurs were a powerful and warlike tribe or tribal confederation of ancient Britain, occupying what is now southeast Wales and perhaps some adjoining areas. And this is Tacitus. Tacitus was a Roman historian, right? He described it. Said, according to Tacitus's biography of Agricola, the Silurs usually had a dark complexion and curly hair. Due to their appearance, Tacitus believes that they had crossed over from Spain at an earlier date, which we read this part, the dark complexion of the Silurs. They're usually curly hair, and the fact that Spain is the opposite shore. Down here it says Jordanes in his Origins and Deeds of the Goths describes the Silurs. The Silurs have swarthy features and are usually born with curly black hair, but the inhabitants of Caledonia have reddish hair and large, loose, jointed bodies. They are like the Gauls or the Spaniards. So again, this is stuff you can find on Wikipedia, because the truth is too much. There's a lot of truth out there. So,
and Esau's erasing a lot of these facts, with Wikipedia and Google. He's scrubbing the internet.
See, look, it says the word silur is of Celtic origin, perhaps derived from the common Celtic silo, meaning seed.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
Right. So these were those people when you watch like I said, King Arthur. You type in King Arthur, Celts. This is who they were fighting. They had tattoos on their face. They're all bugged
Yep.
out,
Yep.
living in the woods. A lot of these were
That's
Jakes.
Jake right now. Jake loves to get tattoos and shit, man.
True.
Face
True.
tattoo and
Yeah, like these people, you got depicting them as Edomites, but we know, like, you go into the Druids and the Celts a lot of how they were heavy into that witchcraft, man.
Heavy.
wow.
They were
And
really
this was
good
their
on
king, I believe.
that left hand side, man.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the Silurs, different people. Yeah, Silurs is right there. So you had different people. That was it pretty much.
Yeah, that was the point.
Brothers got anything else?
No, I don't have anything.
That was the point. All right. So hope with that, yeah, brothers are edified. Hopefully. So we're gonna give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh,
Yahweh,
Bahasham,
Bashem,
Yahushai,
Yahushai,
Bahasham,
Bashem,
Chakadash.
Makakadash.
Honors to the apostles of GMS, Ruel, who we learned this truth
Shalom.
from, and salutations and blessings to you elect out there. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.